Renata von Tscharner. I'm the founder and president of the Charles River Conservancy. And today we are going to talk about something on the Charles, but it's actually across from Cambridge. It's something that we would like to call the Allston Esplanade. And I have here with me Harry Mattison. Welcome.
Thank you, Renata.
Harry Mattison is a transportation advocate. He also is on the task force of Mass DOT's I90 project. And so we will be talking about an area that is across from Magazine Beach. It's right in the picture in the center here. You see the green of Magazine Beach, and you see the triangle there. And this triangle is actually rail yards that you might have driven by as you are on the turnpike, or if you are on Soldiers Field Road. So maybe, Harry, you can give us a sense of what is in this space now and what are the issues.
Sure. Thank you, Renata. So the area in the middle of the picture here is the spaghetti mess of the Mass Pike on and off ramps in Allston. And just to the south of that is the rail yard. Today it's an empty, abandoned rail yard. And then below that you have Boston University, and then a little bit further south, Commonwealth Ave. The space in the middle is about 100 acres. It's an incredibly exciting space that borders the Charles River. To the north is the Allston community and then Harvard Business School. And again, to the south is the Allston neighborhood as well as Boston University. In 2014, MassDOT, the transportation department, started planning for a huge project, hundreds of millions of dollars, to rebuild this entire section of the turnpike, both to make it safer as well as to make it a more efficient space and also a place where great economic development can happen in the future, and hopefully also to bring new, clean, green methods of travel, bicycling, walking, and commuter rail into a place right now that's very hostile.
Can you explain of why Mass DOT is undertaking this project? What triggered the project?
Sure. The most immediate issue is that the elevated portion of the highway, where the Mass Pike is up in the air, overlooking the Charles, and on the other side the BU dormitories, that section is structurally deteriorating and needs to be replaced.
So it's close to, we see the Nickerson Field in green there, so it's the area between the Nickerson Field and the Charles River. It's that
Exactly.
viaduct. Yeah, and I think you have a picture that kind of shows it from a different angle. So help us orient ourselves again where things are.
Sure. So in this case, the Mass Pike site is in the left-hand side of the screen. And what this image is showing is some of the potential connections and important institutions and job centers along the river here. So there's Harvard to the north, there's Boston University to the south. Just across the river is Central Square and then Kendall Square and MIT. And you have a great network of the Paul Dudley White bike path and walking and jogging paths along the river. But we don't have great connections across the river, especially in this area. And so the orange dotted line shows the Grand Junction path. It's an idea in Cambridge to create a new path for walking and bicycling through Cambridge that we believe should be connected across to Allston and Boston University as well.
And that's along the old track of that railroad?
Yes, it's the old graffiti-covered railroad bridge underneath the BU bridge.
And is the trail would be next to the railroad, because sometimes the railroads will still go through there?
Yes, the exact configuration is still to be determined, but the essence of the idea is that that's a great place for river crossing for people walking and biking. Right now the crossings are at the Mass Ave Bridge and then up at the River Street Bridge, and you have quite a long section of river where there is no way to get across, and the Grand Junction crossing would be a great solution to that.
Yeah, that means if you're down at the river, if you are on Commonwealth Avenue, you can cross on the BU Bridge, but not if you're down at the river. There's no
Exactly.
crossing.
We'd like to see crossings at the river paths to connect the paths that run along Memorial Drive with the paths that run along the Esplanade in Boston as well.
Yeah, so the white are the existing bike paths, and we'll be talking about that connectivity further on. So here we are again. We need to reorient ourselves. We have the Nickerson Field we had before, and the site we are talking about is just south or just below that picture we're looking at.
Exactly. So what this picture is showing us is, again, on the left is Magazine Beach and the playing fields and the DCR pool down in the lower left-hand corner. And the red ribbon you see going vertically through the image is the Mass Pike. That's where the elevated viaduct is that is in need of structural replacement. And the dotted yellow lines show the potential improvements for connections along the river. And we see two arrows. One arrow crosses under the BU Bridge into Cambridge, as we were just discussing. The other arrows continue along the river in the Boston side. And one of the most exciting opportunities is at the bottom of this slide, where you see the green wedge along the river show the potential for a widened new piece of parkland along the Charles River.
And this widened piece of parkland has been named as the Allston Esplanade, which I think is a wonderful term.
Absolutely. We think that this space has the potential to be for Allston and BU and the new development that will eventually happen where the Mass Pike is today, to enrich that neighborhood just in the same way that the Esplanade in the Back Bay is such an important part of that neighborhood and the regional network of parklands as well.
Yeah, and we have here a rendering. Tell us who made this rendering, how did that come about?
Well, we were very fortunate to have the Boston Society of Architects take an interest in this project, and this rendering was done by a team at the architecture firm NBBJ. And what they've done is looked at how this entire area where the turnpike exists today might be redeveloped. And that's what all of the white rectangles are, showing proposed new development. In the bottom right-hand corner is the existing DoubleTree Hotel along the river. And then at the bottom of the image is Magazine Beach. And across from Magazine Beach is this potential new Allston Esplanade.
And tell us where is the planning for that? I think the project is called the I90 Relocation. Where does that stand right now?
Sure. So a lot of work was done in 2014 with MassDOT, DCR, Harvard, BU, and many other groups on the project, as well as a number of neighborhood residents and organizations such as Livable Streets, Walk Boston, and Mass Bike. And our understanding is right now the Baker administration is reviewing all major transportation projects, and this project, because of its great potential for economic development, for smart growth along a new commuter rail station, for environmental benefits with projects like the Allston Esplanade, we hope will rise to the top of that review and then move forward in 2015.
Yeah, so you mentioned transportation related development. Can you explain where the new transportation will be? It's in the picture, but maybe you can describe it some more.
Sure. So the idea is that the turnpike today and all of its ramps take up so much space and prevent any real development on this land. So the proposal is that the highway would shift closer to Commonwealth Ave.
It would be straighter rather than making a big curve. It would be straighter because there would be no more toll booths.
Right, the toll booths would be removed. That open road tolling, as has already been put in place at the Tobin Bridge, is going to be put on this section of the turnpike in the near future. So then we don't have any more toll booths, and instead of the big looping sort of suburban style on and off ramps, we have a more regular street grid next to the highway. a new commuter rail station known as West Station.
And that can be seen in the middle of this gray area, sitting between the current BU environment and the new development.
Yes. So with a new commuter rail station, new parkland along the Charles River, and new connections for cyclists across into Cambridge, this project can do so much to promote clean and healthier transportation that it's really a fantastic opportunity.
Yeah. I also like this picture because it shows Magazine Beach at the bottom of the picture, the pool there. So that means the Allston Esplanade, which could be slightly sloped, could become like a seating area for events with the Magazine Beach as the backdrop. So it has a lot of potential, and it's an area that definitely would benefit from green space.
Oh, absolutely. Right now, this is the nastiest, narrowest, thinnest part of Charles River parkland anywhere in the Boston or Cambridge area. And at the same time, it's a space that has great views of downtown Boston. But today, you're too sort of overwhelmed by all the noise and exhaust from all of the cars on Soldiers Field Road and the Mass Pike to appreciate that if you turn and look over your shoulder, you see the State House, you see Beacon Hill in downtown, and it could be a quite wonderful place. Lots of Cambridge residents and people from all over, are biking and jogging and walking along this part of the river. But today, the Boston side is a side that people try to avoid with good reason. We'd like to see this loop really be something that residents in Cambridge, Allston, and from all over would come to enjoy.
Yeah, and we will be talking also of how people would get there from the neighborhood. But all these new blocks or the new development there, has it already been decided of what would be happening there? What kind of uses would be appropriate there?
No, that's really not known at this point. The goal is to have a kind of flexible design for these new streets and a layout where, if in the future it's decided that those are going to be office space, housing, hotel, who knows what. I think there's a lot of potential there. When we're talking about this many acres,
Yeah.
probably there'll be quite a mix of different uses, but this is all land that's owned by Harvard University, and what eventually gets built there, that's many years away.
Yeah. Well, you are a transportation advocate, and you have brought a picture of envisioning of how the neighborhood would connect to that Allston Esplanade. Tell us what we're looking at here.
Okay, the picture here up in the corner, and this was another image from the NBBJ design team as part of the Boston Society of Architects charrette. The photograph shows the Commonwealth Avenue Mall in the Back Bay. A lovely place to walk or jog with art and benches and, the famous tree lighting in the winter. And this could be a great model for how the Allston Esplanade connects back into the Allston and Brighton neighborhoods. And for people, biking in from the west, from Watertown and Belmont, to connect to the Esplanade. So the drawing shows the idea of a pedestrian mall with ample green space, walking paths, safe bicycling paths as well, and then bordered by city streets on both sides.
Mm-hmm. So this effort of the Allston Esplanade and of the railroad bridge being converted for bicycle transportation is really also part of making bicycling and running and walking along the Charles a more attractive option.
Absolutely.
And,
we need to be creating these sort of safe and welcoming and
Yeah.
pleasant opportunities to walk and bike
Yeah.
as much as we can.
Yeah. So so here is a detailed picture of how the current railroad bridge, which is still used several times a day, of how that could also accommodate a bike path.
It is. So the current railroad bridge that we see, it's the one diagonally going underneath the BU bridge. It has two bays in that bridge. Only one of them is currently in use, and more needs to be figured out about exactly how this bridge is going to be used, but whether it's on the existing bridge, on a wider version of this bridge, or on a new structure that would be built next to this bridge. The point is that this is a great way to connect the paths that run along the river on the Cambridge and Boston sides, both for recreation as well as for people commuting by bicycle.
And this is a map that shows the Boston side of the river, the Dr. Ball Dudley White Path, and it shows in red the three bridges where you have to go and fight the traffic, and the top one of the red box is the Anderson Bridge. That's now currently being designed by Mass DOT. That's the way it could look like. And going back, the other two bridges, the River Street and Western Avenue, they actually are more part of what's happening with the I-90.
Well, hopefully those bridges will get rebuilt as soon as possible. They're I think eyesore and an embarrassment, the physical condition of the Western Ave and River Street bridges, and they're not in the current MassDOT budget for construction in the near future, but certainly we hope that they'll be repaired in the near future, and when they are rebuilt, they're become a nicer place and safer place to walk and to bicycle, as well as continuing to support huge numbers of drivers going between Boston and Cambridge.
Yeah. So as an Allston resident, you have participated in those meetings at I-90. They have been very lively meetings. I've attended some of them, and I think to have the help of the Boston Society of Architects to actually show such a Allston Esplanade was a wonderful help.
Oh yes, I think the task force that you mentioned has been great in that there's been a very strong consensus supporting these ideas. The Allston Esplanade, the improvements for commuter rail, for mass transit, for helping people commute, whether it's into Boston or Cambridge or Longwood, these major job centers where, look, the Mass Pike's already a mess. This project's not going to fix the fact that it bottlenecks in Newton every day, or that it bottlenecks, under the Prue Tunnel going into, towards I-93. If Boston's going to continue to grow, and Cambridge and Somerville, if we want to keep adding, tens and thousands of new jobs into this region, got to have a way for people to get from here to there, and it's not going to be by just jamming more cars down the highway. Yeah.
Well, I'm very grateful that you serve on that task force, and you're very outspoken in Allston Brighton. That's wonderful, because it's such a great location there. It's, as you said, it will have a station. It will be right next to the Charles. It will be in a whole new neighborhood instead of just a dead rail yard. So it's a great opportunity. And you might have heard about this site also as part of the Olympic planning. We would just briefly mention that. You might see on the upper left the university cluster, and both MIT, BU, and Harvard University are part of that cluster where events will take place. And here we are looking at that same area we looked at before, across from Magazine Beach. Do you want to just mention of what's planned in that area of the I-90 triangle?
Sure. So the Boston 2024 bid really has two epicenters of its venues, and one of them is here in Allston and Cambridge, where on the Boston side, at BU, there's proposals to use a Gaines Arena, and then on the Allston side for swimming, water polo, tennis, fencing, field hockey, all to be located in the Allston neighborhood on the Harvard campus. And then on the Cambridge side for Magazine Beach to host distance swim and triathlon, as well as archery at MIT. And what's in the middle of all of this is the Charles River. The Charles River should be a centerpiece of this and a showpiece of Boston and the region and Cambridge for how people are going to get back and forth between these events. The media housing is proposed to be at Boston University. You're going to have thousands, tens of thousands of spectators, athletes, construction workers leading up to the games, vendors, volunteers getting from place to place, and the Charles is going to be right in the middle of it. So hopefully, if or as the planning for Boston 2024 progresses, it really thinks about how the river is an essential part of this this district.
Yeah, and what of course, as the Charles River Conservancy, we see ourselves as the steward of the river. So the first duty is do not harm, but it is also an opportunity to create a legacy because the people who are putting the bid together talk about a walkable city, a bikeable city, and I think the work you have done with the Allston Esplanade and that proposal goes in that direction, that the parklands can be reached from the neighborhood, they can be reached along the water's edge, and if there will be Olympic Games, that people can get to them from BU to Harvard, which right now they cannot connect between BU and Harvard.
Yeah, I think when you're traveling along Comm Ave in Allston, or if you're in Coolidge Corner, you have no idea how close to the Charles River you are. You know, it's right there. It's just over the end of Babcock Street, or just yards away. But it's might as well be miles away. And this whole project is an opportunity to make those connections to the river, to create new parkland. And how often do you get a chance to create acres of new parkland along the Charles River?
Yeah, and also I think it's important both for the transportation planning as well as for Olympic planning. The connections are very important because you want people to be able to get there, and to get there not by making big loops, but by walking there and biking there. And you have been involved in other transportation improvements already along, in Allston, as streets are being rebuilt, bridges are being rebuilt to make it easier for people to move around by foot and on bicycle.
Yes, MassDOT and the City of Boston really were great partners last year. We made some very important improvements along Cambridge Street in Allston, connecting to the River Street Bridge in Cambridge and into Central Square. Some travel lanes were removed for cars. Very nice wide bike lanes were put in, and that was a real credit to MassDOT and the city to make those improvements. There's more work to be done on that in the interim, and then hopefully, as this Mass Bike project moves ahead, Cambridge Street gets totally rebuilt, and we have even a better way to travel between Boston and Cambridge. Yeah,
well, it's great to have you here on the program, Harry. In case you just joined us, you can watch this program on YouTube, and I'm glad you mentioned MassDOT because it's an important partner for the Charles River Conservancy, for the bike paths, for the underpasses, for the bridges, and we are happy to know that there is concern about transportation for bicycles and for pedestrians, because that makes our city livable and makes the Charles a much more attractive environment. So I hope you will follow that, and you can find information on our website. I will put up that in a moment. And Harry, thank you very much for what you do for the parklands, for Allston, for transportation, and keep up the good work.
Thank you very much, Renata.